And we are back for the tie breaks, the first place tie breaks in the Qatar Masters Open. After an eventful, dramatic day of chess, it has come to this moment. And it is between Nordibek Abdusattorov against Nordibek Yakuboev. Right. And well, before I ask you your thoughts, let's take a look at the regulations and let's see what will happen next, because the players will be playing a 2-game mini-match with a time control of 5 minutes plus 3-second increment per move. Now, if this 2-game mini-match is tied, then the players will play another 2-game mini-match. And if it's still tied, nothing can separate between the two, then the players will play something which I call sudden death, which means they will keep on playing chess until someone has a decisive victory. And guys, what do we think will happen in today's tie breaks? And, well,
we have a lift-off.
We do have a lift-off. Let the show begin. And we already see that Abdusattorov opens with a king's pawn, and Yakuboev answers in kind.
Yes. And we have a ducal piano.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Bishop c5 is not played just yet, right? So, well, now we do. And yeah, technically, Gioco piano, you call the one with d3, right? So that could be some crazy gambits and stuff, but no. Yeah, so castles, knight f6, d3. I think we've seen Abdusattorov playing this one. d7, d6.
And what will happen? c3 played.
c3, so now knight c3, h6, and, you know, the symmetrical. Right, so a5 is the move, a6 is the move, right?
Any move, yeah.
Not quite, not
a5 played, preventing
a5,
d4.
yeah, okay.
Will it be difficult for the two players to adjust to playing blitz?
Yeah.
So.
Especially Yakuboev, you know, he's just come off of quite a tense, long in-game.
Fatigue might, but I don't think it is very hard for them to adjust. Because they are known as very good speed player.
Yeah, well, you know, like being a good blitz player and playing kind of two games mini-match after the classical event is like different things, right? Because you just kind of for 9 days you had this rhythm of when you ran out of time, that means 30 seconds for the move, and now it means 3 seconds for the move. So that's a big difference. Like, because, yeah, like some stuff just kind of getting inbuilt in your head that, yeah, you've made a move, you have 30 seconds, now you have 3 seconds. So, and when you are like really short on time, you have to be super quick. So bishop to a7, h3, so far I don't think anything new has happened.
Nothing new, but...
Well, an extra minute, look, an extra minute for Abdusattorov already. h7, h6.
And now this is the tricky part. Maybe Yakuboev is planning to play g5 and then push it to g4. Now white already castled. It might be a good idea.
But too
optimistic.
Well, maybe we will see a plan like that because it is a blitz game and you can traditionally play in a more risky style. But okay, castles on the board. And we'll see how Nordibek actually handles this. And I remember that you were mentioning that it is actually possible to go bishop e6.
Yeah, here with the pawn on a5, that's...
You cannot go b4 afterwards.
The wisdom is that you can play bishop e6. Black instead goes knight to e7. Also very common to bring this knight to g6, knight g3,
g6,
knight g6. And now if you play, say, bishop b3, no, he didn't.
He played d4, yeah? Or
d4. Right.
Yeah, d4.
Eventually he goes d4. So now the big question is...
what do you do?
Capture on d4 and d5. Yeah, there's always a question. Yeah. Like when you went d4 and you've built this center, but yeah, like after e takes, c takes, there is always d5 that you have to account for.
And he took on d4.
He captures on d4,
And
right?
I think C
Pawn
d4,
takes.
and then d5 is
d5.
on the card.
And it is on the board.
So, yeah, I'm not quite sure if White is so happy with the results of the opening. We'll see.
Pawn takes pawn,
Pawn takes,
plays,
knight takes.
Knight takes, and will there be
Can
pressure
we?
applied?
Yeah, like
Queen
how do we apply pressure on this d5 now? It's a big question, right?
Well,
So Queen
also
b3. There is c6.
as easy as that. And you also have jumps in to the center with the knight coming to e5. But also a big question is, what is White going to do with the dark squared bishop? It has no satisfactory square. Well, Abdusattorov says, yes, he can develop to d2.
Bishop d2, targeting this guy.
And c6.
c6. So the knight's supported, the pawn's protected.
Queen
Queen c2. While some, tricky things. If the knight's moved, all of a sudden g6 knight is hanging.
Yes. So don't move the d5 knight, especially...
And also, look, a good natural
Yeah, like
move
bishop e6, rook
doesn't
e6.
work.
Yes,
Rook
yes.
E6.
That's
So-
another nice kind of idea that Queen c2 covers. So for black, right, I mean, he has to look
Knight
for the way
h4.
to... Knight to h4. Yes, exchanging the f3 knight, or attempting to exchange the f3 knight.
Okay,
Getting rid of this knight on g6, which was kind of hanging. So the question is, do we go knight e5, sacrifice the pawn, and don't know what for, once again.
well, that is the
No
big
idea.
question, right? If you jump forward, you do give up the d4 pawn. And central pawns are worth fighting for.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the standard reaction when you are playing against IQP, right? You want to trade pieces so that in the end game, this d4 pawn will be weak.
Now it's Abdusattorov's turn to think.
Yeah.
Is he considering knight
Well,
to
you
knight,
can-
or is he maybe considering...
You can do some funny things, like take on d5 in this position, right? So, like bishop d5 guards the knight on f3, so black has to recapture with the pawn, and then take the knight on h4 and take the pawn on a5. But, like, it's a few moves with captures, but then after bishop d4, you're probably worse. There is a little problem, yeah.
Maybe it's just time to go all in, jump in with a knight to the center, just disregard material and...
Yeah, like for the blitz game, interesting. I'd be reasonably happy. Just put the knight on e5, bishop d4, rook a d1, without much calculation. I know my pieces are playing and so on, but yeah, this is not how these guys are playing chess.
No,
Everything has to be calculated.
Abdusattorov now down to under 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And
captures.
captures the knight. Queen jumps forward.
So
And it is
takes.
possible for White to actually capture the pawn on a5, but that would be a mistake after bishop takes pawn. And suddenly there is a double threat against the knight
And the
the bishop.
And rook e4 is
Rook
on the
e4.
board.
Rook
yeah.
e4.
Attacking d4 and also attacking the queen at the same time.
Queen went to f6.
And then White has to be careful because what can it be? I thought bishop f5 was a good move, but there is still...
Yeah, White has to be careful, period, right? I mean, why not?
Also bishop d4 maybe is
Bishop
the,
d4 is...
it's a threat right now.
could be a threat because some knight h5, you'd have queen g6 pinning the rook. Yeah, that. Even out of this relatively simple position, they've managed to create something very, very tactical. Yeah, rook takes rook f4. Oh, sorry, bishop takes rook f4. I thought was, an interesting attempt. So let's see if it holds through.
No,
Now black has an extra minute. So Satorov, was playing very fast, but then spent some time and couldn't find any really good.
But the position still has a lot of danger for both sides. White's rook on f4 is primed for an attack against the black king.
Queen g6.
Queen g6.
Wait a second. So queen g6. Now, if white trades the queens,
And he
well, if
does.
he does, yeah, trades the queens, captures on f8, perhaps.
But can he...
And then just play bishop e3 maybe?
And you can capture also on a5.
Oh, like takes on a5, but still after bishop d4, bishop's very active, right? So knight e2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knight e2. So this way, knight eyeballs f4, c3. So if the dark square bishops would be exchanged, white would be perhaps even slightly better, okay, with potential to be slightly better. Right?
Yeah, this knight f4 is a threat, but also bishop a5. Should black do something with this? Yes, and black just
Bishop
did
b6, yeah. Bishop b6 because the pawn was...
So maybe now protect d4 and then play knight f4. Okay, let's say bishop e3 first, so bishop c3.
Yeah. It's always the question where you want
Yeah,
this
where
bishop.
would you want to go, yeah?
Where you want this
he did rook c1.
stupid bishop to go, because it will be stupid either on c3 or e3, right? So rook to c1, fine, but then black can do bishop e6, knight f4, bishop f7, right? Be solid for now. There's also g5, just to restrict, you know, to take away the square.
Yeah, maybe after rook c1, I think the idea is to play knight c3 and then just put the knight on b5, because after knight c3 you're forced to play bishop e6.
I might take the pawn.
Yeah, this...
Taking the pawn, taking d5. Oh yeah, b2 is also hanging,
Yeah,
so maybe
yeah.
that's not...
Yeah, like in general, with two bishops, you would prefer for these two pawns not to be there, right?
Right.
He's reaching
to
for the
have-
bishop.
Right.
It's going to develop to e6.
Bishop to e6.
Yeah, bishop e6, and the idea is to meet knight to f4 with bishop f7, just safely securing both weak
this,
pawns on
this,
g6
and these guys
and
will be
d5.
protected.
Yes.
So now since f4 is still an option, we can go bishop f4, bishop e5, because I'm looking at the good
Well,
square for the bishop.
Both players now around the minute mark, and just bear in mind they are only getting a 3-second increment. And a tricky move from Abdusattorov on the board. Rook c3, threatening rook to b3, and perhaps winning material. So Yakubov needs to
c8.
be careful.
Wow.
Rook c8.
Which looks like a blunder after
bold.
knight f4, but you can
No, but
take
rook
the
b3.
A rook b3.
Rook b3. This
is
was
the idea.
this was the
The whole idea?
Yes.
But after rook
Wow.
c6,
Rook b3, now this is hanging. If you move the bishop, b7's gone. Right?
You have to
Rook
lift the
c6.
rook.
Has to go rook c6.
I know.
and now I think it's time to save the d4 pawn and then reroute the knight somehow.
So what did he do? Bishop c...
He's gone
No,
a4 first.
A4. Yeah, because
back
the-
a4 itself. Yeah,
You know, the rook on b3 was a bit uncomfortable.
But also now the rook is threatening to come to b5 and target the a5 pawn. This is looking scary for Yakuboev.
Bishop c2 is going to be the intention.
Bishop f5 played, bishop c2, right? So there won't be, like, you know, peaceful, quiet draw from this moment on, because kind of both sides have their aggressive...
Knight f4.
Knight to f4.
So I guess after bishop c2 will be met by rook c3.
Well, bishop c2 was played, and then rook f3.
f3.
Rook f3, going
tricky
for some
move.
checks, double checks, you know.
No, this is so tricky.
Do not
Players.
be tempted to move the bishops, because there are discovered checks against
King
Black
E8.
King, King e8, and Yakuboev
E8.
10 seconds.
But you know what? I'm not
Knight
sure
takes
how
d5.
White's position, if White's position is any good, because now, yeah, like bishops will start chopping those pawns off. Bishop d4, a4's hanging, b2's hanging.
But it doesn't matter,
Bishop
because the clock is
e4,
ticking down.
you know, bishop e4 is in the air.
But there is also rook f4.
Rook f4. This
Yeah.
bishop takes a5. Pieces are hanging.
Yeah, many
Yeah.
pieces are hanging right now, and they only have like about 10 seconds left on the clock. Crunch time.
And yeah, Nordebek now ticking down to 7 seconds.
C3.
Wow, knight c3.
Has to speed up. Rook f6, yeah, correct idea to trade the rooks away.
Yes.
So rook takes, bishop takes. Black cannot lose this one either than on time.
f3. And bishop check on
F3,
d4.
check on d4.
King goes to f1.
You have more checks,
Yes,
right?
bishop d3, king e1.
Have more
And
checks.
king
and then-
d7.
But the white king is coming towards the center. It's coming towards the action there on the queen side. And okay,
Knight
black
e4.
king steps forward. And knights are such tricky pieces.
Knight e4, do you take this guy? Yeah, I think you
Yes.
take. Yeah.
He took that.
He didn't. He took on b2. And knight c5. Is knight c5... no. I'm behind. Pardon me, guys. I'm behind on this coverage. So I think our digital board just can't go.
Okay, let's focus on the camera.
Right. That bishop
So-
e4. Yeah, I'm far behind, seriously.
Yeah, and
Okay,
there
let's do it.
we can
So
just
one
focus
pawn
on
each
the edge.
on the
And-
side.
Oh, not
Bishop
pawn
H4
falling. With the
falling.
check.
G7
is
though.
safe there.
G7.
Yeah, but that can be defended.
That can be defended
The-
for sure.
H5.
But
Wow,
It's not
that's
really
a-
need to be defended.
That's a fun
And
move.
throws a check.
Almost, almost a checkmate, but you have the king over king b8. Yeah.
Black is looking good. Black has an extra pawn.
But watch out for the clock.
Yeah,
See
the
there,
pawn's gonna
players?
go, but right, like he's hunting this g2, and Abdusattorov is also so low on time.
But he's
Bishop
playing
H5.
so
That pawn will be
calmly.
fallen on g4. You cannot stop this. You cannot
Yes.
stop bishop g4.
And if you
Yes.
take on g7, the knight it was getting stuck on g7 after
Exactly.
bishop d7. So that's
Wow.
really, really well. You can still hope to save this one, but I'm afraid it will all be decided on time.
And
Yes.
Yakubov
And with-
ticking
D7,
down to 12 seconds.
Bishop d8, no, king c6. So he is going after this a pawn now.
Yes, and getting two weaknesses, two strength for Yakubov, because this g pawn is also.
So what do you do then? Do you try to?
b5 now?
Yeah. You do play king b5 for black, I think. Yeah, that's what black does. And bishop d8 will win this pawn, right? So just go bishop d8, yes.
Yeah.
He could have gone bishop g5, like, a little annoying move, but that's fine.
Oh, then.
And now a or b pawn
you take
rather
first
will.
and then you go bishop
Yeah.
c7 to stop the king from.
No, bishop e5.
Oh, bishop
Not so easy. Not so
But
easy.
Yakubov,
king
two
c6, very
pawns up
tricky. If you
in a
go
bishop
bishop
endgame.
bishop c7. Now bishop c7 is.
King d5, no? Oh, king,
No.
yeah. Right.
And now
Two
it's
pawns,
a matter of-
it's winning. It is winning. He has to be careful, but it is absolutely winning.
After bishop e5 maybe.
And
now
what
king
a
d7.
start it's going to be.
Oh,
And
and
he
oh,
has won on
It's
time.
flagged.
Yeah.
So Yakubov won the first game.
Wow. What
What a game.
dramatic
What a
game
game.
decided in the final seconds. We saw the panic. We saw how Abdusattorov vainly tried to get the knight moving, but in the end, it was Yakubov's bishop pair that was decisive. Wow. Well, that means that Abdusattorov now is in a must-win situation with the black pieces. What's it
Yes.
going to take?
Why anything can still happen. I just don't. I'm still in shock how the game ended like that, because it looks like White was just in control, but somehow with all this time scramble, Yakubov proven to be a better player.
And for Yakubov, what's it going to be? He has the white pieces. How should he play?
I think just solid opening, maybe. Solid opening and then not pushing too much, because he just needs a draw.
He just needs a draw.
Just needs a
Yeah.
draw.
Okay, so what would you recommend? Pushing with the king's pawn, queen's pawn?
I think go with his main repertoire. I'm not exactly sure what is his repertoire, but you shouldn't experiment in this time of.
Right, they know each other quite well,
Yeah.
I think. So you might play, like, perhaps not the opening you're always playing, but which is kind of good against your opponent's repertoire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice situation to be anyway, like needing only a draw with the white pieces. That was dramatic game.
That was indeed a dramatic game. Now, the players will have 5 minutes just to recover their composure and get settled in and ready for the second game of the mini match. And Abdusattorov is in a must-win situation. So what an incredible game. Can we actually take a look at the first game and see where it all went wrong for Abdusattorov?
Right,
Because
let's try
saw
to
the
do
names.
it.
We saw that both the players play those moves in a big hurry. They didn't have too much time on the clock.
Yeah, if we can get the board. It's your board.
It's
now,
my
I
board.
think. Yeah, it's your
We
board
can get
now.
Miro's board very soon.
Yeah, can be.
Give us a moment. We'll change the board.
Let's see. It's unclear, right?
Yeah.
Because
It is
the one,
unclear,
yeah, okay, this one. This is when I think I first thought that, yeah, like white should be careful. Two bishops are two bishops. It's knight d5, bishop d4. I'm not sure. really. Like, was there... Like, there should be ways of, you know, simplifying. And knight c3, I don't like that much.
Or bishop
but-
c3.
Yeah, bishop c3.
Bishop c3.
But yeah, like, is black really in any danger after bishop c3? Well, you take, and
And
knight takes.
Yeah.
Well, equal, you know, equal material, bishop against knight. I don't think black is any worse. Yeah, knight c3, rook f6, it's still kind of fine. Check, check. King d7. I think knight e4 was... Knight e4... Yeah, this is already dangerous, right? The a pawn's weak.
Yeah, and the black king is so far advanced.
King b5, and
That
yeah,
it
this is
could-
where he got into a pawn, and then kind of takes this guy. Knight e6, bishop d1. I think there was one fun moment that if you capture here, it's a check, and then doesn't matter where the king goes. It's bishop d7, so the knight is arrested. Maybe he's not lost immediately, but it is arrested on d7. Yeah, and then I guess, like in few moves, we've gotten the position which was absolutely winning for black. Perhaps the kind of last nice touch was king e3, bishop e5, king c6, and if you go here, it's bishop c7 exchanging bishops.
Yeah, and we did see Abdusattorov lose on time, but
And
there
players
we
are
can
seated,
see
and
the
we
players.
have to,
Yeah.
have to switch to this time Yakuboyev playing with white and only needing a draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
First move prediction? A quick prediction for the first move, Mira?
Well, I would
Any.
open with the queen's pawn
Queen's
because
pawn.
it's solid.
Any.
Okay, I'll
Any
go
move.
with the bishop's pawn, c4. C4
Okay,
is-
and
Okay, I'll
there
pick
we
E4
can see
then.
the players. We
So
saw
to
them
cover
adjusting
everything.
the
Cover
pieces. Everything is building up to this moment. Nordebek Abdusattorov
And-
needs to win if he wants to take the match to
D4,
further tie
okay.
breaks. And then we see
Yes.
him opening with the queen's pawn.
Knight f3 is such a,
e6.
such an annoying move to see.
Okay, and then we see
Right, bishop d4 check, so which is known as Bogo Indian, right? But after bishop d2, you do not trade but go to e7, knight c3, and castles short. You pretty much allow white to go e4.
Well, then the play gets very complicated, and surely that is what Abdusattorov wants, because after e4, d5, then we have one of the sharpest lines. And, well, Yakubov says absolutely, game on.
I'll take your challenge. e4 is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, but that's what you do, I think, when you're in a must-win situation. You should not ignore the most principal moves. Because that's very kind of harmful mindset. So you say, okay, this is dangerous, I'll play something safer, and you end up in a worse position, like with no chances, strangely. And so I totally support going e4, and then what would you
Maybe
think to be?
CDED and
Well, you have a choice. You can push forward.
Yeah, like you go e5 immediately or take first. Yeah, okay, he's gone e5, knight e4, then he
CD5.
captures on d5. Knight
CD5.
takes d2 was played.
CD5 and d5, bishop d3, knight takes d2. Yes.
So he takes, bishop d3, knight d2,
Queen d2
queen
and knight
d2,
c6.
and knight to c6.
Looking good for white.
Well,
Well,
we still,
depends.
we
Like,
still have that imbalance, right?
Right.
Black this
Right.
time has the bishop pair, and white does have a fantastic bishop on
d4,
d3.
d4 is a potential target, and from my experience in Bogo Indian, that f4 would mean that white's center is completely secure. Like with the pawn on f2, it's not as much. So castle short.
Bishop g4.
And the
Bishop
bishop came out to
G4.
put pressure on the center immediately.
You can pull the bishop back to
Yeah,
e2.
and he does.
Bishop
Yes.
e2,
And
f6.
Very thematic in his position to play f6.
Right.
And now the question is, how is white going to react? Remember, Yakubov just needs a draw to take
That's
first place in
That's a weak
Qatar
pawn,
Masters.
So h3, bishop h5. Do you go g4 now? That's exactly something that you would like to avoid, right?
Yeah.
But other than that,
Rook d1 or rook
rook
e1.
to e1,
Rook
a1
d1.
to or D1. D1, yeah. Okay, so saying like
H8.
whenever we trade everything, D5 will be hanging.
Yes.
King to H8.
Very
Understandable. Understandable. Question is, can white or should white push the pawn to E6? Because Queen D6 now is not that nice because of Knight B5, right? So
Another
E6.
principal move, Rook FE1.
Just
FE1.
centralizing the rooks.
Well,
Now
also
decision
preparing,
time.
yeah, at some point.
Preparing.
Right, but also now it's decision time for Abdusattorov. Does he eliminate the tension in the center, trade some pawns, or is he
No.
going to
No.
He's going bishop F7.
bishop F7?
But now
But now
white...
it means you can just pull the bishop to F1 maybe and then
Or B5.
Or
B5.
Or back to D3.
And it's gone to B5.
Bishop to
B5 it
B5, yeah. Because, yeah, one thing you'd like when you're happy with the draw is...
Bishop H4 and back to E2. And Abdusattor has to find another move than bishop F7. He cannot afford repetition.
Bishop H5, Bishop E2, right. So if you take on E5, what happens? Just Knight E5, right?
And are the clock times correct for Abdusattorov? No, he's down to, well, he's got a serious time advantage just having used, 20 minutes on the clock.
20,
2 minutes. 2 minutes on the clock.
20 minutes? Can't
Not
be.
20.
Did I say 20 minutes?
20 minutes.
2 minutes.
All right. A6 stops Bishop B5 and white has to look for another way.
Maybe A3. I think A3 is a good looking move.
A3, but
What's the idea?
What's the idea? Yeah, no, you really want to kind of get rid of this tension here, right?
Is it the time to play G4 now and then bishop F1, bishop G2?
It would change the nature of the game, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And
Queen C2.
Queen C2.
it's very difficult to change when you feel that you're holding the balance. The Queen to C2.
C2 is a strange move, I want to say. But
guess-
yeah, well, you have to make a move. That's the problem, right? You don't see one, but you still... Yeah, well, maybe Queen B3 is what you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
And
be
one other thing,
a direct
right?
threat, attacking 2 pawns. And the question for Nordebek, what to do? Is he going to just hold the balance and play rook to b8, or is he looking at something much more direct? And no, she dropped
Still
the bishop back
returns
to
to
f7.
Okay.
Can we play Queen D2 back?
Can you also go bishop d3?
Yeah. Bishop D3.
No, it's met by
wanted to
knight to
knight
b4.
B4.
A3
right?
preparation. Maybe now it's a time. And he did.
Yep. So now A3 is played and Bishop D3 is, well, potentially the move white will be looking at.
Bishop G8. And now Bishop D3 is the move, yeah?
Now it does not attack, H7 though. So Bishop D3, I'd be somewhat worried about like capture on E5. If knight takes D4 is hanging, if pawn takes, rook F3.
So he took F6 first. And after bishop takes, knight
Happens.
somewhat.
EF6,
Knight A4.
Bishop F6,
Knight A4.
knight to A4,
Going to C5.
going to C5. All right.
Oh, this is good idea as well. Yeah, black is looking a bit too passive.
Yeah, but that was clever from Yakuboyev. Now this is bishop on G8, so black spent some time kind of transposing bishop to G8, and now it doesn't do anything there. And knight C5 kind of highlights the absence of this bishop on the queen side.
And what happened? B something, yeah? B. No.
Queen
cannot.
d6. Queen d6 on the board. Knight jumps
Knight
into
to
c5.
Yes.
And that's the moment where you pretty much have to start giving up. Okay, rook B8 is still there, right? Rook B8 is still there.
Rook b8.
Rook
But
B8,
it's
B4.
it's also possible to consolidate that knight on c5. But
Abdusattorov did something else.
Yeah, he
What did he-
retreats the knight to d8.
Oh, knight D8.
Knight
yeah.
D8.
Okay, nice. Knight D8 to finally get the C7, C6 in.
And also
The Carlsbad,
to
the Carlsbad thing.
prepare potentially b6. kicking the knight
Three.
away.
Yeah, bishop d3, b6.
B6.
And now I think the knight has to retreat.
Wait, if you play B6, I think the pawn is...
Oh,
No,
knight a6, yeah. This could be...
And he does it. He takes the pawn.
He takes the pawn.
I believe
That's
he
a
did not
pawn.
blunder this one. So knight
C5?
a6, knight e6.
Yes.
No, knight e6 for now. Kind of stating that, yeah, your knight is a bit offside, or a lot offside. How about rook e6, bishop e6, queen c7, you know. I know it's not the way you play for, you know, when you need a draw.
You might need to do that because the knight is in danger
the
of
knight's
getting
kind of-
trapped there on the edge of the
kind
board.
of
C5
stack,
is a serious
and
threat.
C5,
And
yeah,
he-
And he
does
takes
yeah.
it.
He does it. Rook e6. So now,
And bishop has to take, right? Otherwise, it's knight takes c7.
yep, bishop
bishop
takes,
takes.
and he captures
is-
with the queen. No.
No.
With the knight. Queen c7. No, queen c7.
c7.
Knight c7, rook c8.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
we lose the knight on a pin.
Yeah, queen c7.
Queen to c7. So now
Rook a d8.
rook a to d8. So it's an exchange for a couple of pawns, right? But enough pieces on the board for this one to be super tricky. The queens are not exchanged though. I think white went rook to e1. Yeah, kind of keeping the tension.
Yes, rook e1. Okay, so white has 2 pawns as the compensation for
Yes.
the exchange. Whether it's going to be enough, it's another story. But it is a line that white has to take.
You know, it's blitz. I think you do this simply because you want simply a game. Like with less than a minute on the clock, it's very hard to keep tension. So that's why you go for this sacrifice, even though objectively perhaps it's
And there we
ideal.
can see the clock time. So we see that Yakubov is under the minute,
Yep.
whereas
Bishop returns to
Abdusattorov
here.
has just over 2 minutes on the clock.
Yeah,
So
so
it's a serious time advantage.
exactly. And Abdusattorov has to keep pressing the time because this is also his chance to level the match.
So do you traded the queens on d6 and then well, it's not that trivial, right? Knight c7, knight b5. I like this one. So knight will be stable on b5 and it also guards the d4 pawn. So it's some sort of a fortress white is trying to build, you know, with a lot of pieces all over the board, just kind of guard pretty much all the squares. Guard the d4 pawn, guard, you know, like c2 so that the rooks cannot enter. Still rough though, like the moment black exchanges a pair of rooks, it clarifies the situation a lot.
And the rook does move
So
to
rook
an
goes to
open
c6,
line.
knight b5.
Like
You know what
b5.
happened after rook e6? Maybe white should dodge the trade, right?
Yes,
Yes.
rook e6, you'll move the rook to c1.
But Abdusattorov has to be careful. Knights are notoriously crafty pieces in time trouble. They can move backwards, forwards. They have this sideways
G5.
motion as well. And g5. Wow.
g5.
Raising a
Abdusattorov.
lot for the king.
Yeah, taking space. The king is now
takes
going to jump
space, yeah.
forward to g7,
It's-
King f1
king f1,
and king g7. Okay, so
and now
Knight
another
e5.
Knight e5, so he ends up playing knight e5. That's one of the things that g5 does. It does not allow you to support a knight on e5 with f4. Knight e5, rook e6, and I'm afraid he is getting in, you know, a bit of a pin here on the e file, but
well, he
once again, it's not as easy.
no, but he's played g3,
Yes,
and Yakubov just 12 seconds on the clock.
rook e7, knight d6. Knights are tricky, right? You are, Jovi. So pawn takes and bishop e6, so he stops knight f5 check and attacks the h3 pawn, and white quickly played king
King
to
g2.
g2, rook to c7, and you have to rush with knight b5, knight d4. Yeah, and I think after that white might have a decent position. Knight b5, rook f7 though, f2 is hanging, rook is aiming at f3.
The knight is going to go backwards to d4, and still white has a lot of trumps that they can use. The pawn on e5 is strong, and Nordebek
d4.
now just consolidating the position.
Yeah, honestly, I think now is the moment where white is not objectively in danger. I think white's position should be good.
And e6 is on the board. And
d7, just push the pawn
Push the
e6,
pawn.
and he wins the exchange back if you move the bishop, because knight f5 is here.
that's the idea, yeah.
And he spotted that idea with 7 seconds on the clock. And Yakoboev, he has just 10 seconds.
So now,
the
just
draw.
don't lose on time. I think that's the only thing which on his mind.
Well, a draw is sufficient to net him first prize, $25,000 US, and the title of Qatar Masters Open champion. And it's on the board.
But now the material is equal with lots of extra pawns. So technically speaking, white is even winning in this position.
But you don't need to.
You don't need to, yeah. And it's
You don't
making
need
the job easier.
I think that's exactly what might, kind of play a trick with your mind, that you think, but I'm winning, so let's win. And
Well, there is a threat against the rook on e2, and so that's why it gets moved to the center. And I like Yakoboev's strategy,
E4.
putting his king on a dark square.
Yep.
And
rook e4 is a clever move, right? Because d4 is hanging. After d3, you can just put the
d4.
rook behind it, or rather play f4 first.
Oh,
to
that's
take
tricky.
away all the squares from the king. Like
Yeah.
d3, no, he doesn't play f4 first, which might have been a better move, to be honest. But yeah, but there is rook d7 as well. Yeah, and you cannot trade, so that's, once again, a move with the tempo. And after rook e8, you know what's going to happen? Bishop take d3. It's cynical. I know, this is
good
by
enough.
far not the best move in the position, but that's what you do when you only need a draw. Just get rid of any possible danger.
and
Goes back to f6. All right. Can you still...
no, the white king just approaches.
Oh, king f3. So now the king is in the square, right?
Yep.
Bishop e6. And now you can trade on e7. Now he captures on d3. Still not obvious, but
And
yes.
they shook hands.
And that is it.
That is
That
it.
With
is it.
2 victories. Nordibek Yakoboev is the winner of the Qatar Masters Open. And what a sensational result for the Uzbek player. I mean, who could have predicted it? This is one of the strongest opens in the world. Magnus Carlsen is here, Hikaru Nakamura, Anish Giri. But the champion is Nordibek Yakoboev. What a
Done.
performance.
Well done.
Yeah, well done. Very well done for both of them. And also congratulations to Uzbekistan Chess, because this is a phenomenal result. 2 youngsters playing for the title in a tiebreak match ahead of many well-known names.
And you could just see the emotion there when he finished his game. They had troubles kind of setting up the pieces because it was such an emotional result. And I can hear the noise from the playing arena. Wow. What an event it's been. It's been full of drama. It's been full of shocks. How would you...
Many upsets, and also many good results from many players as well. So, no, Qatar Masters has proven to be, again, one of the remarkable opens in the world.
Absolutely. And for you, Miro, what has it all been about? What's been the most memorable thing for you?
Well, once again, there were so many high quality games, and then I'm still kind of trying to recollect myself. Abdusatorov, imagine what roller coaster of emotions it's been for him, playing nearly perfect game today, catching his opponent by surprise with the preparation, almost winning, letting it slip. Winning by a sudden chance when your opponent in an absolutely drawish position hangs your rook, and then losing the tiebreak. So that's rough,
It is rough.
Being chess player is rough.
But we have to hand it to Yakoboev. Today, he played a cracking game against Karthikeyan. And today, in the tiebreaks, he was just in impressive form. Can you quickly show us how he won the second game?
Yeah, let's try. I think we followed it till some point. Yeah, as soon as we will get the board, I'll quickly show what happened. Yeah, so perhaps could do from move 1. So bishop e7, knight c3. I think d5 is what you do, but nonetheless, this is what happened. Bishop d3, and at some point, yeah, this knight c6 was played fast. Bishop g4, Looks like black starts creating some threats to white's center, f6, and around here we were relatively happy, I think, yeah. h3, rook d1, rook e1, bishop f7. That was the first kind of reminder, no, you can't repeat moves even though you're playing with black. a6, queen c2, and so that was the first moment when I thought was very clever. Abdusattorov, though, found this knight d8, b6, knight e6 idea, which looks very dangerous here with Rajovi. So the knight is getting stuck on a6, c7, c5, d4 hanging, you know, knight f4 jumps. White decided to sacrifice an exchange. So queen to c7, rook d8, rook e1, trade the queens, knight c7, and knight goes to b5. And I believe black is better objectively, but it's much easier to play with white, I think, in this case, and especially knowing that, you only need to, you know, create simple threats, hold the position, and it's all pressure is on your
And
point.
he clinched it there at the end, you know, when he played, I think on move 40, e6. And
so
that was the moment where it was
G2,
all over.
like rook c7 allowed this, you know, this knight transfer to d4, after which I believe white is already better, and then bishop d7, so e6, threatening the bishop, threatening knight f5, white wins the material back, keeps the extra pawns, and then it was all flawless from there.
And what can we say other than congratulations to Nordebek Yakubov, a sensational result from the Uzbek player, and I think we can all be certain to say that we are going to hear more about him in the future. And, well, as we bid farewell to this epic tournament, well, that just leaves me to say, Irene, Evgenij, it has been a privilege commentating all the action alongside you guys for the last 9 days. And I would also like to thank both the organizer and the sponsors, without whom this event would not have been possible. I mean, we have been absolutely honored to see all the games and to see all the outstanding stories and results. And then finally, I would also like to thank everyone at home for watching and participating in this event. You've been with us every move of the way. Until the next, goodbye.
Thank you very much.
See
See
you
you.
again.
Full of innovation, there remains one timeless world. A world that hasn't changed for more than 1,000 years. A world with devoted traditions, just like Qatar's traditions. Qatar stands as a notable example of blending traditions with modernity, much like chess. Join us in Qatar Master Open 2023, where you will witness the best chess players go head-to-head in a tactical battle. If you wish to succeed, you must brave the risk of failure.